Good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar, Taking the Challenge Out of Conversations, How to Communicate Without Judgment or Blame. You'll see on the left side of the screen some things that we always remind. Mute your audio. If you have questions, put it in the chat. We're recording this. Participants and registrants will receive a follow-up email with webinar slides, recordings, and handouts. Here's our disclaimer about intellectual property and such. I'm not going to read it. And our presenter today is Joan Fretz, who's a school climate consultant, co-founder of the Long Island SEL Forum. She's been guiding schools to address New York State mental health and wellness mandates for over 22 years. Joan has served as the coordinating editor of the Nassau County Mental and Wellness Strategic Plan, executive director, International Alliance of Invitational Education, New York State Lions Quest SEL program, and a veteran, a public school teacher and district administrator. She enjoys helping educators develop positive communication skills through the study of non-judgmental communication and interpersonal neurobiology. Co-author of Developing Inviting Schools, a Beneficial Framework for Teaching and Learning. Welcome, Joan. I'm going to let you take over. We have 47 attendees at the moment.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Thank you. I'm going to share my slideshow and let's see how successful I am in doing that. Okay. And now that I see the slideshow, I don't see the chat anymore. I'm trying to figure out how can I do that because I want to be able to see the chat. It's the way I can make the slideshow smaller. Bob?
I don't know. If you scroll down, you'll see the chat up here at the bottom with a whole bunch of other information.
I see the people's faces, but once I opened up my slideshow to the full screen, I don't see anything else.
Okay. I don't know. I do.
Pardon me?
I do. I see the people's faces across the top. You can move things around.
Well,
I can see the chat.
I don't know if I should not be, perhaps I should be showing it in a presenter view. Would that allow me to do it differently?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, hang on, guys. See if I just get rid of some of this. Oh, I don't know. It's too big. So I'm not, I've been on my own Zoom, but it's not showing the other things. Okay, well, not sure what to do about the chat.
Okay. I can see it.
You can see the chat. Well, you might have to clue me in. And I don't know how else to, unless I don't share my screen. Let's see. Let me see. Oh, let me try something else. Oh, here it is. I found it. Okay. As long as I have the chat, I'm good to go. Okay. So hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. This is a presentation I did a couple of years ago for the Long Island counselors in person at one of their conferences. So I'm always happy to do this again. My frame of reference is that I was a school district administrator responsible district-wide in Huntington schools for all the music and art teachers, very large staff. And my entire career of being in the public schools, which was well over 30 years, I was always very concerned about the way people were talking to each other, and especially how staff members who weren't trained like a school counselor is trained on how to be listening respectfully and responding respectfully to others. So what happened was I started just getting very involved in communication in schools and school climate in schools. And so even though it was not my training, it became my passion. There's a couple of things I put in the chat already for you. One is, let me see where they are. One is the first thing I put, if you see the purple JF, that's me. That is a link to my Google Drive document just for you. It has every single handout that I think you might need to use the materials that I'm going to share with you. And it also has a folder with a PDF of this particular PowerPoint and also some other ones that are a little longer than the one we're doing today, but they're all basically the same show. Two other things I put in there is I have two different websites that I run. One is my own website, joanfretz.com, which I haven't been too busy on lately, but there are a lot of pages on there about communication and about this particular topic and resources. So there, you can go on that site and play around with a lot of the materials that are in the books that I have read and that I'm reporting on. The other one I want to bring up to you is a new website that my buddies and I in the Long Island SEL Forum organization. It's just a volunteer organization. We have been working together. First in Nassau County, we helped to edit a 68-page document called the Nassau Mental Health Strategic Plan, and it has a gazillion resources in it. But we decided to create a website for Long Island Self called Creating Wellbeing. So if you look at that link, liself.org, and go there, you will see the Creating Wellbeing sharing site. And we are looking for people like you to say, hey, we're doing something great for student interventions, or we're doing something amazing with parents or staff. And just simply, if there's a way you can submit something to put on our site as a sharing. We're very excited that we are, at this moment, we are also adding all brand new free resources for natural helpers. I don't know if anybody does natural helper programs in their schools, but there's no longer, those materials are available any longer. They've been out of print forever. There's a brand new program that's being offered for free, and it will be on the Long Island SEL site. So those are, exciting things I managed to get myself involved in, even though I'm not a mental health educator. So I hope you will join in. Feel free to contact me at any time. You have that in the slideshow, my email address, my cell phone number. Love to hear from you. Okay, so if there's no other questions, I'm going to get underway. Let's see how I can move forward. Well, this is interesting. How am I going to move forward? Here we go. Okay. So here are the resources that brought me to being able to talk to you about this today. On the left is a book that I helped about 2-3 years ago my mentors, William Perky and John Novak, who created invitational education or invitational theory and practice. And they were needing to redo their book and bring it up into current times. So this is the new edition of it, but it's basically a framework for systemic change. I've been very skeptical of the latest and greatest new buzz thing that people want you to buy. So this is a framework that talks about interaction and self-concept and perception through all parts of a school district. The people, the places, the policies, the programs, and the processes, they all message us about our self-concept. So that's that piece. Then I look for strategies that make it easier for people to do a better job at communicating. And I fell in love with Marshall Rosenberg's original work on nonviolent communication, and then the more updated version of that by Oren Sofer called Say What You Mean. So today's session is introducing you to their work. And I think you'll find it helpful and practical. And again, my goal is not that you need this as much as the other folks who are interacting in schools could use some help in communicating in more respectful ways. See if I can get this to move. Here we go. So the concept behind the framework really is that we are, when we communicate, we are really responsible for choosing the words that we decide to say and the intent that we have for our message. But we are not responsible for the meaning that the other person gets from our message. So we're always thinking about what message are they receiving? And the problem in schools is very often we might be rather harsh in how we are speaking with a student or a parent or a colleague, and we're not realizing that every one of those statements is influencing what someone believes to be true about themselves or their self-concept. So if we want to help have a better self-concept for the students we are working with, we need to have a way of recognizing that we're not in charge of the meaning, they are interpreting the meaning. So now I'm going to jump into where we start in Marshall Rosenberg's work, and that is choosing words. In the English language, there happen to be a lot of words that are not really feeling words, and we tend to use them to express feelings. So I'm going to ask you, which of these lists do you think might include some words that I would call a false feeling word? One box is true feelings, the other box is a false feeling word. Green is false. Huh? We've got differences of opinion in the chat. We're looking for a pure feeling word versus a word that is involving what somebody did to us. That's a better hint. Yeah, I'm seeing more purples showing up, and that was my intent. The purple list involves somebody else's action making me feel a certain way. It's not actually a feeling, but we often say, well, I feel taken for granted, but that really is not my feeling. So we're trying to avoid using false feeling words, and that's step one in the process. When we make a statement about how we're feeling, we want to remember in this process that our feelings aren't really caused by what other people are saying or even their actions. Basically, our feelings come from a need that we have, a need that was met or not met. So there might be an event that causes us to get all churned up, but the root cause of our feeling is related to our needs and our wants. So, for example, let me see if I can find where I am here. Let's say your director of guidance is very frustrated and comes to you and says, I'm frustrated with the shared solution they came up with at central office because I was hoping for a full-time counselor at the high school. So she was, or he was, frustrated because she needed or wanted what? Do we have any suggestions for what? If we wanted to make that a very simple statement, I have to move the chat over so I can see your answers. Ah, somebody's saying they use this with their middle school students. Awesome. Basically, we feel a certain way because of a need that we had. So it might be that she says that to you, and you are trying to respond, and you might then guess. You can't assume you know how she feels, or even in the statement that she said, if you're going to understand really. So you might respond by saying, well, it sounds like, because that's a guess, it sounds like you feel frustrated because the shared counselor position is going to make us it's harder for us to address the issues when they come up all at the same time. And then the guidance director would respond, yes, that's it, or no, not exactly. But that's the idea of speaking in terms of matching the feeling and need to the same person instead of to the action of someone else. Okay, you know why I have trouble moving the slide. Here we go. Here's an example of something that might happen at home. So instead of saying, I'm frustrated because you just get up after dinner and leave me to clean everything up, instead we might say, I'm feeling tired and would like some help in cleaning up after dinner. So what's the feeling in that statement? There's a feeling word in there. Somebody, they're allowed to put their mics on if they want to just shout something out, or are we doing all
tired?
I'm tired. Yeah, that's my feeling. And what is my need?
Help in cleaning up after dinner.
Okay, so it's a pretty clear statement, and I haven't made you feel guilty yet. All right, so you might also add the next step of the process, which is a request. So you might say, I'm feeling tired tonight and would appreciate some help cleaning up. Would you have time to give me a hand? And that's 3 steps of the process. There's actually 4 steps, and one at the beginning we'll go back to. But that's the idea of I'm going to express my feeling, attach it to my need, and then if I need something from you, I'm going to ask you if you would help me without making you feel guilty about not helping me before. Okay, let's see. Okay, having trouble getting this to advance when it's on your screen. I don't know why. How's that? I'm going to give you a couple of examples of things that happened to me as the director of music and art in Huntington. These are real situations that happened. So I want you to think about listening for and guessing feelings and the needs that are attached. So a parent came into my office, and she was very angry because her son had applied to all Ivy League schools, and he was getting really terrible grades in band. I didn't know much more about his involvement in band other than the teacher told me that he never came to what we call in the high school band program, the lessons. So, you know, there's 150 kids in the whole band, and you can't really teach the parts well in 150 people band. So there's a requirement for being in band that you come to rotating lessons with a small group. And the teachers are flexible about which period you show up for. Could be during lunch, could be out of another class, once a week. So a parent comes in, and her son had a low grade, and she was angry about it because of the lesson grade, which he just basically came to no lessons. So she's expressing that, and I might have said, I'm sorry you're disappointed, but the teacher did offer him ample opportunities to make up the work. And at this point, that's the grade he earned. What might not sit well, or what's wrong with that sentence that I could change? Here's a clue in there. Well, I don't see any responses, so I'll say the but is a bad idea. If I make the beginning of the statement and then I say the word but, I've negated everything in the beginning of the statement. So it doesn't really matter that you're disappointed when I say but. So I have to get rid of the but, okay? So I might say instead, it sounds like you're worried. So I'm going to guess, right? I'm not assuming you're disappointed because she wasn't disappointed and she wasn't worried. She was mad as hell. So instead, we might say, well, it sounds like you're worried about John's band grade and wish he had completed the required work. Have I got that right? Now, in this process, you may not be right. And this parent does then have the opportunity to respond. And if I wasn't hitting the nail on the head, the response she gave me still gives me more information. And that's when she went on and on and on about how she and her husband had forced the child to stay in band, even though he hated band because they thought it would look good on his resume and transcript. So you see, even when you may not guess the right thing, you open the opportunity up for the person you're talking to give you a little bit more detail. So after we did some listening back and forth and talking, and she was a little more honest, I said, well, like a solution, well, how about I meet with John and his teacher and we brainstorm how he can earn a higher grade for next quarter and get it up where it needs to be? Because the teacher flat out was not changing the grade. So that's just an example of a tough one I had. Find my clicker. Here we go. Here's a situation that very well might happen in an elementary classroom. Sometimes there's a lot going on. In this particular scenario, and this comes sort of just right from one of the books, really. In this scenario, the teacher has the whole class working at tables. And at each table, they're making one poster, and there might be 5 or 6 kids who are working together on making a poster on, doesn't matter what the topic is. And suddenly, she looks up from her desk, and this young man, John, he seems to be in trouble a lot. That's one of my son's names. She sees him throw a whole bunch of markers that were on the table off onto the floor. Big upsetment in the room. And she responds maybe by saying, John, pick those up. What's going on? No recess for you today. Okay. She doesn't really know what caused the action. So we might take a breath and start with just an observation. So again, the first step, can you say an observation before talking about feelings and needs? So she might say, John, I saw the markers go flying off the table. Help me understand what's happening. Not help me understand why you did that, but help me understand what's happening. And following some additional dialogue, you might get the idea that, yeah, they didn't like his handwriting and they didn't want to let him write on the poster or include his ideas, and he got frustrated. So she might resolve by saying, well, it sounds like you were frustrated and wanted them to listen to your ideas and include them. Is that right? So again, we're guessing feelings and needs and looking for some confirmation from the person. So I think that's an important step before the teacher decides who's at fault and making, as she did in the first example, an immediate consequence for that. Any comments about that or questions? Okay, let's see what's next. Oh, this is a very cool part. Marshall Rosenberg was working in the late 70s and 80s doing amazing things, which are explained in the beginning of a 3-minute video, which I think you're going to enjoy a lot. I'm just showing you the beginning of the video. He's talking about being, or he's in a refugee camp Palestinian refugee camp in the middle of conflict. He's talking to people in the camp who are very angry. And we want to listen for how it is that he is responding without getting insulted, and with listening to what the person talking to him was thinking or feeling rather than actually what the man was saying. And this is something you can find on YouTube. So let's see how I do in getting this to rock and roll. We'll listen to 3 minutes. Try to listen for what he's saying back to the man.
In your 40 years of mediating conflicts between warring factions around the world, what's the most important thing that you do that creates peace between the people involved?
First, I never hear what they think. See, I get called a lot of names by people who hear what I'm saying. I see you've read my book. You probably can recall I was in a refugee camp in Palestinian Authority, and what all the crowd had to do was hear from my interpreter that I was an American. And a gentleman jumps up and screams at me, murderer, and another one jumps up, assassin, and another one calls child killer. Within an hour, the guy that called me a murderer invites me to a Ramadan dinner at his house. I didn't hear what he thought of me. I connected to what he was feeling, what he was needing. As I walked into that refugee camp, there were hundreds of tear gas grenades all over the lawn, shot in the night before when they had a riot there. And on the side of each of the grenades was written, "Made in USA." So when this guy calls me murderer, hearing that I'm an American, I tried to hear, what is the guy feeling? And I said, "Sir, are you furious?" And then I tried to hear his needs. "Are you needing a different kind of support from my country than you're getting?" And he looks at me in a kind of a stunned way. Apparently that's not the way people respond to him usually when he screams at them. He said, "You're damn right. We don't have sewage. We don't have housing. Why are you sending these weapons?" So I said, "Well, then that makes it clear why you'd be so aggravated. If you don't have these basics and you get these weapons sent over here, I can see that your needs are for some other kind of support." He said, "Do you know what it's like to live under these conditions for all these years?" I said, "So you'd like me to understand just how desperate it can be even for one day, let alone for many years." So I heard what was alive in the guy. Not what he thought I was, a murderer. I didn't say I ain't killed anybody. I tried to hear what was going on in him. And when he trusted that I sincerely cared what he was feeling, what he was needing, he could start to hear me then when I said, "Look, I'm frustrated right now because I came a long way to be here. I want to offer something. And I'm worried now that because you got me labeled as an American, you ain't going to listen to me." He said, "What do you want to say to us?" So he could hear me then. And we have a school there now, one of the schools that we call a nonviolent communication school in that refugee camp. And whenever I go to that region, I'm well received hospitably in that refugee camp.
Okay, well, I'll stop that there. See how you feel about that and see if I can get back to, I'm trying to get back to my slideshow, which sometimes is challenging. So the little things here on my screen. Let me see what happens if I get rid of that. Here we go, I did it. So what did you hear? Of course, I listened to it 1,000 times. What did you hear Marshall Rosenberg say to the man after he was yelling at him? He labeled or guessed the man's feelings and needs. Anybody jot it down? Don't be on the defensive. Yes, well, yeah, he was saying that there was a statement he said which follows the pattern that he validated his feelings, cut through the cognitive to the emotional. Right. Unfair to you guys for me to ask you exactly what he said in the statement I'm looking for, but you'll remember it when I say that Marshall said to the gentleman, instead of responding, there you go, somebody said it. Good, Amy. He asked, are you furious? Are you needing a different kind of support from my country? So he didn't respond to the accusations of the gentleman who was upset. He guessed his feelings and his need. And that is how he finally got to the point where he was able to demonstrate that he was there to help. So it's a great little 3-minute video to share with your staff. In the nonviolent communication program that Marshall created are these 4 steps. Trying to start with an observation, like the teacher who said, I saw the markers go flying, John. Help me understand what happened. Right? Then feelings, then needs that we guessing are underlying or saying what our feelings and needs are. And then if we want to make a request. So whether we're the speaker and we're expressing our feelings and needs, or we're the listener and we're trying to make sure we understand, in that case, we are guessing the person who was speaking's feelings and needs. It's the same 4 steps. So sometimes we think we're making an observation, but it can be somewhat evaluative, which is not the best idea. So I've put 4 statements here for us to play with today. And somehow I've lost the chat again. I don't know how I'm going to get my chat back. No. No. Oh, well, I think I will give up on that. Sorry. Okay, so an example of an evaluation would be, we never do what I want to do. It's an evaluative because we never do. Instead of an observation, which is a little awkward but more factual, the last 3 times I suggested an activity, you said you didn't want to do it. So I found a way of bringing up the topic without being evaluative, okay? So let's look at the first sentence, number 1. Pam was first in line every day last week. Imagine a little elementary kid telling you that. It's important where you get in line, right? And I can't see the chat. So now I'm trying to wonder why. So I guess I would need someone to put on a microphone at this point if I can't see the chat, or somebody wants to read out an answer.
I see furious.
Oh, never mind. I got it back. Here we go.
Okay.
Phew, this is high pressure here. Okay, so Pam was first in line every day last week. We're wondering, is this an evaluative statement, or is it a good observation? People are saying it's an observation. Yeah, because it's factual. What about the teacher who brings a parent in, Justin's parent, for a meeting, elementary kid, right? Brings the parent in to meet, and the teacher says to the parent, Justin is very aggressive. Here come the easy answers here. Yeah, that is being evaluative, because we're calling Justin aggressive. A different way of saying that might be, well, yesterday Justin pushed Mary and then broke her new crayons, which would just be an observation of what happened. Third one, Janice works too much. Is that evaluative or is that an observation? People are saying evaluative. Yeah, I agree. The word complains is evaluating Janice. We might say instead, Janice spent 60 hours at the office this week, which would be just an observation. Okay. The last one, my aunt always complains when I talk to her. We're thinking. I'm going to suggest that that is evaluative as well, because again, the word complains makes it evaluative. We might just say, you know, my aunt calls me several times a week. Each time she talks about people who treated her in ways that she didn't like, which would be just a little bit more on the factual side. Okay. Again, when we're talking about someone, it may not be as important to us as when we're talking to the person, because when we're talking to the person and they're feeling evaluated, that's when we get into trouble. Okay, trying to advance. Oh, can't do that anymore because I'm not in the right screen. Here, we'll go here. So this is a list of needs that comes from the program, from both of the books really that we're talking about. And you'll notice them in categories. We're going to be using them to do a little exercise now and again, but these are a handy list of needs in categories. One thing that's interesting is if you were to be thinking about introducing this to staff, say at some sort of a meeting, you might want to have more than just a piece of paper like I showed you for the needs and I need to show my screen now. Where did I go? I don't know where I am. See if you can see me. There is a company, and the link is at the top of this screen here, Grok the World. I don't know if you've heard of Grok the World, but they make, I'm going to show you these cards that can be used for activities in person. So what I did was I bought one of their boxes of the big cards, and they have 50 words that are feeling words and 50 words that are needs words. And it's very helpful because you could put a bunch of words on a table and have people use them to try to construct the sentences that match a feeling with a need. I found people enjoyed having that kind of thing, and so I thought you might want to have that as a resource. Okay, so in this activity, catch up with myself, I'm going to need a volunteer who is willing to just pick one of these statements. And you're just going to say the statement, and then everybody else is going to answer in a way that would try to guess your feeling or your need, where you have to say, oh, we're just going to guess needs, okay? So sounds like what you really needed or sounds like what you were hoping for. That's the need we're looking for, okay? So first I need somebody who's willing to be the guinea pig, who's just going to be the person who makes the statement, and then the rest of you can put your answers in the chat, and then our speaker can choose one to say, ah, thank you, I feel heard and understood. Does that make sense?
I was driving into a parking lot and someone pulled into an open parking space that I was heading for with my turn signal on.
Okay, thank you. So now we're looking for how would you respond to that? We're guessing his need. Do you want to put that in the chat or are we putting our mics on? Okay. Was that you, Bob, who was speaking? Who was the speaker?
That was me, Frankie.
Frankie. Okay, because I've lost my little video for some reason. Oh, maybe I'll find it here. No. Okay, so there's a bunch of answers. Let's look as you're looking as you're answering, let's look at the need list for it to be a true need. It's got to be one of those things. I love the answers. We're looking not for a feeling, we're looking for the need. What was Frankie's need? Sounds like what you really needed or were hoping for was not what you need. You're giving me feelings. Ah, respect. Okay, I see one. To be seen. Yeah, I needed some respect. I needed a parking spot. Okay, you guys get the idea. Very good. All right. I love the sense of humor at the end of a long work day, huh? Great. So that's the idea, is that can we really talk about what or guess what someone's need is? And then, Frankie, how would you respond to that? Somebody said, you could pick one. I needed respect. Would you respond positively to that?
Yes, I would say I feel heard and
Ah.
seen, unlike the person that took my parking spot.
Okay, great idea. Thank you for being such good participants. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story. I have to look at my notes to see what story I'm telling you. And true story. And I'm going to ask you afterwards to guess my feeling. And then we're going to switch and look at the needs list and see if you can find a need. Okay? So here's the story, and I'll put up this is the feeling list. Okay. So after I retired from my position in Huntington, I became the executive director of a nonprofit organization called Invitational Education. And they had been floundering and losing members, and my New York buddies and I decided that we were going to offer to hold one of their conferences on Long Island. And they did a conference every year, but they were down to about 100 members and sometimes only 50 people at a conference. So a lot of great people worked with me and our committee. And we ended up running a conference in 2015. We had visitors from all over the world because we had a lot of people in Hong Kong, especially, and Australia, who also use invitational education. So anyway, there were 300 people who came to the conference, and they made a whole lot of money, which they needed as an organization. We were in a board meeting just a few minutes before the conference was about to begin. And I was mentioning that I would just like to greet the audience for a minute before we turn the program over to the ladies who had helped me as the conference chair people. And I was told by one of the longtime board members that that was not my role, and Joan had no business greeting the guests at the opening session. And so I want you to tell me, how was I feeling? If I can see more answers. Yeah, good answers, everybody. Yes. Well, you nailed it. Very fun, like the Vladimir. Yes, that would have summed it up. And what about what was my need after all the work that we did? Here's our need list again. What were some of my needs? Yes, just a morsel of appreciation would have been nice. Okay, you guys get the idea. I think it's also curious to note, but I did get up there and speak anyway because I wasn't taking that no for an answer. What was very ironic was that towards the end of the conference, this poor lady who wasn't very nice to me for many years fell and broke her hip. And she was from the Midwest and she was not going home. She had to have an operation. So Joan, ironically, ended up being her visitor who went and bought her pajamas and underwear and visited her at St. Catherine's while she had to stay until she was able to go home. A few years later, I was trying to recover from that whole incident. And I was trying to think about how I could understand her feelings and her needs. And there's an exercise that I'm going to share with you, which is really quite helpful when we feel like we just can't put aside something that's happened to us, that somebody did to us. So let me see now. This is here. This is a link to an exercise that you get spelled out the whole thing, but I'm just going to share with you what it is because we don't really have time. Oh, we're running out of time to do much with this. But it's an exercise where you would, on 2 pieces of paper, you would draw a line down the middle of each, and you would put an F for feelings and an N for needs on the page with a line down the middle. And you would write down all of the feelings you could think about an incident that had upset you and what your needs were on the other side. And you would spend maybe 10, 15 minutes on that. Then you would go to the other piece of paper, do the same thing, but imagine what were the feelings and what were the needs of the other person who was talking to you, who you were upset with. So that exercise is here. It's a very nice reflective exercise. We don't really have much more time, so I think I should stop jabbering at you. I'm going to explain a couple of things about the slides, and I want you to think about what comments, what ideas do you have about this work and whether you think that it would help you. Any thoughts? Anybody want to turn a mic on and just talk? While you're thinking, here we go.
I would like to share something. I know that it seems like this work is aiming towards more like adult population, right? But some of the things that you've been describing, some of the things that I often do with my students. And I'm wondering, has anything or this, do you have anything that is applicable, especially for middle school. Like middle school engage in a lot of this. You said this is, and they engage in a lot of physical education. And then when you kind of like talk to them, it's like, it wouldn't be nice if you just sat down and talk. It was not the end of the world. So kind of putting feelings in perspective, giving them a totally different sense of what it really happened at the beginning.
I see. Well, you make a good point, and thank you for saying that. This work is perfectly doable with students and to teach it to students. The point is to teach it to all the stakeholders in a school. This is the way we would like to speak to each other. And it is possible to use the program with young people. And I would encourage you, especially in a middle school, to do that. There are a number of things that you can look for. I am going to also, let me go back and see if I can find the slide here. Okay. This link that I'm going to open is courses that Oren Sofer teaches. Oren Sofer is the more modern version. He wrote Mindful Communication, basically took Marshall's work and modernized it and added being mindful while you were doing this. And I took a number of courses with him, and they no longer are available in Mindful Schools, which is where I took them, but they are available on his website. So you do have a slide with a link to how you can actually work with him. You know, he ends up reading the book with you, ends up helping you practice with partners online. I had a partner who lived in another state, and we did a lot of partner practices during the course of the live sessions that were there and in between. So it is possible to take this and to make it applicable really with young people. That was really good. See what else we're hearing in the chat. Yes, I think you're all probably already very empathetic and understanding. My beef has always been with everybody else in the school. I wanted other people to have a way of being able to not just say, you didn't follow my direction, go to the principal. You know, you were talking, I told you to stop talking, go to the assistant principal. And sometimes we find ourselves being then embarrassed by the fact that the assistant principal sent the kids back because one kid's mother was in the hospital and he was worried. And that's why he was talking to the other kid. He hadn't heard from his father. That's a true story. Happened in a middle school I was giving a workshop to. So it is possible to teach our colleagues how they might get what they need in a way that's a little bit more respectful. Any other comments, questions, things you want to raise? Very interesting. I'm seeing what Amy's saying about staff and student and power struggles. Right. Yeah. Well, again, you can use it even if the other person isn't trained. But how cool would it be if in a school we actually gave the kids a way of saying, here's another way of saying it? I mean, I think it would be harder. You want to do a part 2? Okay, I'm on it. Yeah, I'm happy to come back and do more with that. An hour is certainly not enough. Sometimes it's helpful if we have a small group and we do a longer stretch of time and the same people come back and are able to work in a small amount of space. That's something that can happen, you know. And if you're close by, I'm happy to to come in and do this. Sometimes years ago, I would go to a school district or to one of the BOCES centers, and the same people would come back like for 4 sessions, and they'd have time to fool around with it and practice during the week.
Now that you said that, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Are you nearby New York City?
I live in Huntington on Long Island, so sure, New York City is a train ride away.
Okay. The reason for that is for the past 2 years, we have we call it multilingual student newcomers coming into our school
Mhm.
at a bilingual program. So sometimes because of the language barriers and other things that are happening, sometimes teachers tend to be very quick and do exactly what you just highlighted.
Ah,
Because, you go there, I'm going to send you to the thing, and sometimes
mhm.
this could be helpful. I would like to connect with you if you are open to kind of visit us.
Sure, I would be happy to do that. I think when we have a language challenge for the English-speaking person, that sometimes they need to be able to maybe enlist even one of the other kids in the class to say, can you help me? I don't understand what, before reacting to the student, can somebody help with a little translation? I don't know how much help you have with that, but we want to be gathering information before we jump to the get out of my classroom answer. Okay, I think we are out of time. Yes?
Yes, you said you were going to share, you mentioned earlier that you're going to share a folder with a lot of this information in it.
Oh, we didn't get to the last slide. Thank you. Okay.
Okay,
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, I missed it by 1. Okay, so this is, I think I put that in the beginning of the chat. Is it there anymore? This little HTTPS bit.
yeah, it's still there.
Okay, so people should jot that down. Well, I
Can
have
you
it up
please
on.
resend it in the chat?
I'm gonna.
Okay, you're putting it in the chat again?
Yes.
At the bottom? Great. So when you click on this link, it's just a little short link, it takes you to a folder on my computer. And the first thing in this folder on Google's Docs is slideshows. So when you open that up, you see 3 PDF of the slideshows. You could use that to share at your own faculty meeting. The one that you are doing with me is the first one, okay? Now, when I go back, let's see if I can go backwards. All of these PDFs here are really great handouts, things that I got from the coursework that I did. So let me give you an example. Let's see what I can find. What's this one here? This is the art of listening. And it reminds us when we're listening not to do these things. Don't one up somebody. Oh yeah, you're tired. Well, what happened to me last week? Some ways of avoiding a lack of empathy, if you will. So each of these documents that's in that folder will give you some great resources that came all from the courses that I've taken. So I hope that will be helpful to you. Lots of things here. Useful phrases. This is another one of my favorites. How do you ask somebody to dialogue with you? Would you be willing to take some time to have a conversation? How do you offer empathy? How do you elicit information? These are great sentence starters that can help us when we know it's going to be a tricky conversation. So have fun playing around in there. You can download and save all of the documents that are in that folder.
That's terrific. Very generous. Thank you.
You're most welcome. The best gift is that you use it. That's what I would love to see people use it and say, guess what I did? And that's when I see people in a series of workshops, the most fun thing is they come back the next week and go, oh, well, I blew it with my kid. But then the next time, and it's a lot of it's what happened at home with their own teenagers and not what was going on in school.
Cool.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I'll let everybody go. Rush home to make dinner.
So on behalf of the Professional Development Committee, thanks very much, Joan, for taking the time this afternoon. Learned a lot. And thanks for the resources. We have some upcoming Comp Camp professional developments, March 12th, which is just next week, utilizing data, and April 2nd, annual progress reviews and so on. You'll get emails to remind you to register.
Great. Well, thank you for all the resources and very much enjoy my interactions with our counselors. You guys are awesome, and we wouldn't have schools put together as well as we do these days if it wasn't for you. So hang in there, and love to hear from any of you. Feel free to email me or call. Happy to connect.
Thank you. Bye, Bob.
Bye, Orphelina. Good to see you.
Thank you.